Hare Krishna. Thank you for participating in the Kirtan. We'll chant a small prayer and then we begin. Om Agyantimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishwadaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Swami Nitinamine Namaste Sarasudeve Gauravan Pacharine Nirvise Sushunyavadi Pashadaleshkarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo Rama Ramo Hare Hare. You'll have to excuse my voice a little bit. I'm pretty sick, but I hope I'll be able to manage and you'll be able to tolerate my voice. So today I'm going to be speaking on this topic called as Yoga of Love. What is the meaning of the word yoga? Of course, in today's times, yoga is like a buzzword. Everybody is talking about yoga. But for most people, yoga is a set of exercises. But the Sanskrit word, or rather the Sanskrit meaning of the word yoga, it comes from the root word yujya. The word yujya means connection. We're going to be talking about the yoga of love, which means the idea of connection between two people. So I'm going to give you all some principles that are universal in nature, and no matter what relationship it is, these principles will work, and ultimately your relationship with God is the ultimate yoga. Even in that level it will work. So I'm going to share with you all some very simple, very down to earth and very practical things that you can do on a daily basis to enhance the quality of your love and enhance the quality of your relationships. Relationships are like a bird. If you squeeze it too much, it dies. If you set it free, it flies. But if you give it enough love and affection, it stays. The challenge is, what is the right balance? How do you strike the perfect balance? For a lot of people, we prepare for everything that is important to us. You prepare to get into universities and colleges. You prepare for job interviews. You prepare yourself for, your PhDs. So there's a lot of preparation that goes on for many important things in our life. But as far as relationships is concerned, people assume that they are already prepared. And they don't really put an effort in preparing themselves for relationships. I'm sure all of you will agree that perhaps the most complicated thing in this world is relationships, isn't it? Not really easy to understand another human being, and definitely not easy to understand how two strong egos can exist together in a relationship. It's so complicated. But we don't really take out time to prepare ourselves for relationships, isn't it? And therefore it is very important to spend time to prepare yourself for relationships. The concept of yoga is, before you do something for the world, you first prepare yourself. How do you prepare yourself? Let me tell you a small story from the Greek mythology that will help you understand what I'm talking about. The Greek god Zeus, when man was created, this Greek god Zeus handed over 2 bags to man. The first bag contained the faults of the person, of this man. all the faults, all the shortcomings of this man was there in the first bag. And the second bag contained the faults of others. Zeus put both these bags on a stick and handed over the stick to this man. But when he handed over the stick to this man, he made a mistake. He kept the bag that contained other people's faults in the front, and the bag that contained the man's own faults in the back. So as a result, this man was able to see other people's faults easily, but his own faults he was not able to see only because of the back. So from that point onwards, all of us are experts in finding faults in others and hardly are able to find any faults in ourselves. This is the root of all problems in relationships. The root of all problems in relationships is that we judge and find faults in other people very easily and almost feel there is no fault in ourselves. Have you ever looked into a mirror hard and seen a person who is not so handsome looking back? The interesting thing about the mirror is when we look into the mirror, we only look at ourselves as very handsome or very beautiful. Unfortunately, that's not the reality, isn't it? So, ideally, when you look in the mirror, you should be able to see what you really are, for what you are, you know. But unfortunately, the mirror gives us an illusion of what we are. And even if you are really ugly, when you look at yourself in the mirror, you think you are handsome or beautiful. The mirror indicates the ability to find faults in yourself. This is one of the most important qualities we need to develop meaningful relationships in life. Which means we need to find our shortcomings and improve on them. We need to find our weaknesses and improve on them. Human beings are work in progress. Every one of us have shortcomings. Every one of us have weaknesses. And we need to work on our weaknesses and shortcomings to become a better version of ourselves. And only when we work on our shortcomings and weaknesses and become a better version of ourselves will we be able to do something substantial in our relationships. It's not easy to work on ourselves, is it? It's not at all easy to find faults in ourselves. It's not at all easy to find shortcomings in ourselves. It is so much easy to find faults in others. But to make relationships work, it's important to find faults in yourself and improve on those faults. Any relationship, it goes through many phases of life. And one of the things that really makes relationships meaningful is when you feel understood. The need to be understood is one of the greatest needs of a human heart. Everyone feels you don't understand me. And somehow, if you just feel understood, you will feel so much connected. And to understand another person, you need to listen to the other person. A lot of us, we are very expert in speaking. We are not so good at hearing. We all have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Why? So that we speak less and hear more. But unfortunately, we speak more and hear less, isn't it? We use our mouth so much more than our ears. If we simply start using our ears a little more, half the problems in relationships will get solved. But unfortunately, to listen, you really need to put effort. In schools and colleges, we are taught communication skills, isn't it? And in communication skills, we are taught reading skills, writing skills, speaking skills. But is there any class on listening skills? Have you ever attended a class on how to listen well? No one takes classes on how to listen well. And half the problems in this world are because people don't listen well. And if we listen also, our listening is a little faulty. There are many types of listenings in this world. There is something called as spaced out listening. spaced out listening means that I'm physically here, but mentally not here. That's called spaced out listening. I don't know if some of you all are doing that right now. So, the second type of listening known as pretend listening. Pretend listening means I'm pretending that I'm listening, but I'm actually not. I don't know how many of you all know that fishes don't ever sleep. That's not a fact. They sleep, but they only have transparent eyelids. So for you and me, even if the fish is sleeping, it's actually not sleeping because the eye, it seems that it's seeing, its eyes are open, but the eyelids are transparent. So some human beings become like fishes. Their eyes are open, but they are not listening. They are somewhere else. This. Then there's something known as self-centered listening. Self-centered listening means I listen to only those things that are useful to me, are important to me. I don't listen to everything. Then there is something known as selective listening. Selective listening means I am very conscious of what I want to listen and what I don't want to listen. There was a man who used to go to a mosque on a daily basis. And he stopped going suddenly. So the Maulvi, he was a little surprised why this person stopped coming. So he went to his house and I asked him, why did you stop coming? This person said, I read in the Quran it is written, one should not go to the mosque. The Maulvi said, I have read the Quran so many times, I have never read anything like this. Show me, he said. This guy went and got and said, Quran, and he showed a sentence. It is written, one should not go to the mosque. So this was the last sentence in that page. It turned around and it said, without washing one's hands and legs. He stopped at that point. This is called selective listening. And then there is something called as word listening. That means I only listen to the words, but I don't listen to the intention with which the words are spoken. If you simply catch people on words, you actually don't get the spirit of it behind it. So just by catching words, you can't understand what the person is trying to say. The same words spoken in different moods mean totally different things, isn't it? Of all these types of listenings, the topmost is called empathic listening. Empathic listening means when I listen to somebody, I put myself in the shoes of the person and then listen to that person. When I put myself in the shoes of the other person and then listen, that really makes an impact. That really makes an impact in the way I understand things. I'm going to tell you all two small stories from Mahabharata. Mahabharata is one of the most fascinating novels in the history of mankind. It's probably the longest novel that has ever been introduced to human beings. I'm going to pick up two small little stories from the book. And from that, I'm going to help you understand the idea of communication. If you simply understand these two stories and the idea that is behind them, a lot of your relationship issues will get solved. During the Mahabharata war, Krishna and Arjun were chasing a man named Jayadratha. This was, I think, the 14th day of the war, and Arjun had taken a vow that he would kill Jayadratha by sunset. And if he did not manage to kill Jayadratha by sunset, then he would end his life. So practically time was very crucial. So when the Kauravas, the enemies, they got to know that Arjun has taken such a vow, they kept Jayadratha right at the end of the army. So practically Arjun would have to pass through an entire army to reach Jayadratha. So the war began at sunrise. And Krishna and Arjun on one chariot, they were intensely trying to slice through the army and reach Jayadratha. All day they were fighting. So it was almost late in the afternoon by this time. And still Jayadratha was a long distance away. So at that point, Krishna, who was driving the chariot, he tells Arjun that the horses are exhausted. They are dying. And they are wounded. They're tired. We have to stop and give them a break. Now imagine, Arjun's life was in danger. And Krishna is now suggesting that we take a break and take care of the horses. Normally, if anybody else was in Arjun's place, they would have said, forget the horses, look at my life. I can get another horse. But, if I die, if I don't keep my vow, I'll have to die. So, but Arjun was a very different type of person. He said, let's take a break. He got off the chariot. He created a canopy, a wall of arrows. And Krishna took the horses inside the wall of arrows. And inside that wall of arrows, Krishna tended to the horses. He gave them grass to eat, fed them water, massaged them, removed the arrows that were embedded on their bodies, tended to their wounds. For almost an hour, Krishna was taking care of the horses inside that wall of arrows. And Arjuna was standing outside and fighting on the ground. And after the horses were fresh, then they again began the war. I'm going to park this story a little bit. I'll come to this again in some time. But I'm going to tell you another story now. At one point during the war, Karna became the commander of the Kaurava army. The day Karna became the commander of the Kaurava army, he went to Duryodhana, who was the king, and he told Duryodhana, I can easily win this war, provided I have a driver like Krishna. Krishna was Arjun's driver. So Karna said, if I get a driver like Krishna, I can easily win the war. Duryodhana said, where will I get a driver like Krishna? Karna said, there is one person in our army who is as expert as Krishna in driving chariots. So Duryodhana asked him, who is it? So Karna said, this is a man named Shalya. So Shalya was not an ordinary person. He was a king himself. And Duryodhana said, why will he be your driver? Krishna became Arjun's driver because Krishna loved Arjun. He was Arjun's friend. And they were very, very close to each other. So Duryodhana said, why will Shalya drive your chariot? Karna said, see, I don't know. If Shalya does not drive my chariot, then I'm not sure how much I can win. But if he drives my chariot, then I can definitely win. Duryodhana said, fine, let me go and try to convince him. So Duryodhana went to Shalya. He tried to convince him to become Karna's driver. Shalya somehow hated Karna. He said, I'll become anybody else's driver except Duryodhana's. So Duryodhana said, please, he begged him, he pleaded with him, somehow convinced him to become Karna's driver. Shalya, he said, I'll become Karna's driver on one condition. The condition is that I'll speak whatever I want. He said, no problem, speak whatever you want, but drive it. If a driver speaks whatever he wants, it's not exactly an easy thing, So Karna, the next day, he got on the chariot and Shalya sat there driving the chariot. As soon as Karna gets on, he tells Shalya, drive me to Arjun. Take my chariot to Arjun. Shalya turns around and tells him, looks like you want to die today. Karna said, why did you shut your mouth and drive? Shalya said, truth when spoken is very bitter. Karna said, I don't think you have been raised well. Your parents don't seem to have taught you good manners. Shalya got really upset with that comment of Karna. And he said, you talk too much. I'll tell you a story about someone just like you. Now imagine there's a war going on. Arrows flying in all directions. And these two people are telling stories to each other, So Shalya tells Karna a story of a crow who was a big show-off. So this crow knew 108 ways of flying. And this crow used to show off to all the birds in the jungle that, I know this way of flying, I know that way of flying. Who likes show-offs? So all the birds in the jungle decided to teach this fellow a lesson. They said, we're going to arrange a flying competition. And they called a swan. And they told the swan and the crow that the competition is very simple. You have to fly across the ocean. Whoever flies the farthest wins. The competition began, and the crow began to fly in all 108 ways, showing off. And the swan was gliding smoothly, straight, it was gliding. And at some point, the crow got exhausted. And he was literally falling into the water. And he started screaming for help. The swan looked at him and he said, "It looks like you have found 109th way of flying inside the water." The crow said, "Please save my life." The swan picked him up, put him on his back and brought him back to land. From that time onwards, the crow never spoke. So Shalya tells this story to Karna and tells him, "You are like that crow, you speak too much." And Arjuna is like the swan. He does not speak, but he does. So anyway, these people kept fighting and somehow they reached the chariot of Arjuna. So Karna and his driver Shalya, they are now face to face with Krishna and Arjuna on their chariot. Karna takes out an arrow. This is a very powerful arrow. It's called the Nagapash. He takes that arrow and he aims the arrow at the neck of Arjuna. Now Shalya, who is sitting right in front, he sees Karna aiming the arrow. Immediately he understands what Karna is trying to do. Now, Shalya also is a warrior. He's an expert warrior. So he understands the science of aiming. So he tells Karna, "Don't aim at the neck of Arjuna, aim at the chest of Arjuna." Karna says, "Once I take aim, I don't change my aim." Shalya says, "You fool, you better change your aim, otherwise you'll die." Karna says, "No," and he shoots the arrow. And the arrow is speeding towards the neck of Arjuna. And Krishna sees the arrow coming towards the neck of Arjuna. Krishna realizes that Arjuna is not going to be able to handle it. And Krishna does something very simple. He hits his feet on the chariot very hard. And the moment Krishna hits his feet on the chariot, all the horses, there are 5 horses, all the 5 horses, they fall on their knees simultaneously. So when the horses fall on their knees simultaneously, the whole chariot, it kind of reduces. And the arrow passes over Arjuna's head and it hits the helmet of Arjuna. And Arjuna's neck is saved. So when that happens, Shalya turns towards Karna and tells him, "I told you. I told you to aim at the chest. You didn't listen to me. See what has happened now." And of course, the fight continues. But I'll stop here and let us analyze these two stories from the point of view of communication. In the first story, Krishna is communicating with the horses. Krishna and the horses are from 2 different species. They speak 2 different languages. It's perfect communication happening between them. When the horses are exhausted, Krishna understands. And when Krishna hits his feet on the chariot, the horses understand. Perfect communication. In the second story, Karna and Shalya from the same species, speaking the same language. But Karna is not able to understand what Shalya is trying to say. Shalya is not able to understand what Karna is trying to say. The question is, what is communication? In today's world, we are living in a world of high-speed communication, isn't it? And there are so many ways to communicate today. You can pick up the phone and make calls. There are so many types of messengers. There are so many ways of communicating with one another. But do you think communication is better today than in the past? There are more misunderstandings happening today than ever in the past, isn't it? Divorces over WhatsApp. Strange, isn't it? So the problem is not less communication, the problem is sometimes over communication. We communicate more than needed. So the question is, what is communication? The very simple formula, the simple way of understanding this is, before you communicate with one another, we have to learn to connect with one another. Unfortunately today, we are very expert at communicating with one another, but very weak in connecting with one another. And how do you really develop connections with one another? To develop the connection with one another, one needs to understand the needs, interests, and concerns of the other person. If you understand the language of the needs, interests, and concerns of the other person, you can actually communicate with that other person better, because you can connect with the other person better. Krishna understood the language of the needs, interests, and concerns of the horses. When they were exhausted, Krishna immediately understood. And because Krishna put an effort in understanding the horses' needs, interests, and concerns, the horses put an effort to understand his needs, interests, and concerns. On the other hand, Shalya and Karna, they did not put an effort to understand each other's needs, interests, and concerns. When Karna is saying that I need a driver like Krishna, what does he mean? His need is not a driver. His need is a friend like Krishna. So he wants a friend like Krishna, but unfortunately he forgot to understand the needs of Shalya. What is the need of Shalya? Shalya is a king. Don't treat him like a driver. Give him respect. So because Karna did not give him respect, that means he did not understand the need of Shalya. Shalya did not understand the need of Karna. This is what creates gaps between people. So if we really want to improve our relationships, we have to first start understanding the needs, interests, and concerns of the other person. When you understand the needs, interests, and concerns of the other person, then you can connect with the other person. And when you connect with the other person, then you can communicate with the other person. This is the flow chart in establishing good relationships. But unfortunately, what we do, we start with communication. You start with communicating, but you are not putting the effort in connecting. And you're not putting the effort to understand the needs, interests, and concerns of the other person. Therefore, the communication will be very superficial and it will be disruptive type of communication. One small mistake, one small wrong word leads to chaos. That's why I call today's world as love at first sight and divorce at first fight. So superficial. Because time has not been spent on developing the relationship, developing the connection. Yoga is a science of establishing connections. It's a science of establishing deep connections which are not from a superficial, external, physical point of view, but they are deep connections at the level of the Atma, the level of the soul, which actually exist, last beyond a lifetime. Only when we try to establish these type of deep, very, very powerful connections can we expect some satisfaction, some meaning, and some depth in our relationships. I highly urge all of you all to explore the concept of yoga from multiple perspectives. One is when you establish a relationship with yourself, become more aware of your own self, and then establish your relationship with God, and then establish your relationship with other people. Those relationships that you establish with other people will be much more powerful when you are grounded in your relationship with yourself and your relationship with God. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Any questions? Anybody has any questions or comments? Did whatever I say make sense to you all? Okay. Yes.
So, what is the differences and similarities between our relationships with ourselves and our relationships with God?
Establishing a relationship with yourself means understanding your strengths and weaknesses. Being able to accept yourself as you are. we all have strengths and we all have weaknesses. Unfortunately, we are all in the process of trying to hide our weaknesses and show off our strengths. But acceptance means we accept ourselves as we are. It takes a lot of strength to accept yourself the way you are. It takes a lot of courage to accept yourself the way you are. It takes a lot of depth to understand your own realities. And when you accept yourself the way you are emotionally tranquil. That is the source of establishing a relationship with yourself. Non-acceptance keeps you emotionally agitated, and acceptance keeps you emotionally peaceful. If you have something, if somebody else has something that you don't have, not accepting it leads to jealousy. Acceptance leads to inspiration. When somebody says something insulting to you, non-acceptance leads to hatred. Acceptance leads to forgiveness. So anything that is dealt with non-acceptance leads to a negative emotion, and anything that is dealt with acceptance leads to a positive emotion. So to establish a relationship with yourself, first accept yourself the way you are. That itself leads to a lot of peace. And in that peace you discover yourself well. And your relationship with God is one level higher. So when you establish a relationship with yourself, you're able to see things clearly. And when you establish a relationship with God, you're able to see things with gratitude. So the strength that you have, the weaknesses that you have, the good that you have, and the shortcomings that you have are all given to us by God. Being able to acknowledge that is establishing a relationship with God. For everything that we have in our lives, we have to be grateful to God for it. And that gratitude can be expressed in so many ways. Kirtan is one way in which we express our gratitude to God for what He has done for us. Prayers are ways in which we can express our gratitude to God for what He has done for us. So many things that we have in our life and we can be grateful for, we take them for granted. Simply acknowledging and understanding the fact that God has already done so much for us makes us very grateful. So I think these are the two ways in which we can establish connection with ourselves and with God. Yes.
You said that before we start communication with somebody that we are in a relationship, we need to understand what their intention and interests are. What if we think that their interests and intentions are not aligned either with us or not aligned in general with the right principles? How do we communicate with them?
See, you cannot establish deep connections with everybody. In fact, you should not. There are some people best left aside. Because not everyone is meant to connect with everyone. There are some people that are meant to connect with some people. And there are so many others that, any human being can have very deep, meaningful connection with only 4 or 5 people. Realistically. I'm talking about really deep, meaningful connections. You can have 2,000 people on Facebook and you can call them all your friends. But are they really your friends? Doesn't really make sense, isn't it? So, those 4 or 5 people that you establish deep, meaningful connections with, choose them carefully. And one of the very important criteria to choose those few people is something called as like-mindedness. Like-mindedness doesn't mean that you both like the same pizza. Like-mindedness doesn't mean that you know like the same brand of clothes. Like-mindedness doesn't mean that you both drive the same Tesla car. You know, that's not what like-mindedness is. Like-mindedness talks about similarity in value systems, belief systems, cultures, and thought process, which is much deeper than those external superficial things. You can like two different types of pizzas but still be very similar in the thought process. So look for connections with those people who are similar in wavelength in terms of these deeper principles of life, value systems, cultures, and belief systems. Yes.
How do you expand your thinking when you're only making connections with people who are like-minded, with similar thought process?
Yeah. See, thinking can be expanded by reading. When you read books by so many authors, that expands your thinking. But when you talk about relationships, it is not possible humanly to have a relationship with 100 people. It is not at all possible. So you may socially meet many people, and that might help you expand your thinking. But when it comes to deeper relationship, it has to be only with a few selected people. And it has to be with people that are of a similar wavelength and similar mindsets, basically. For your own growth, you can read books. For your own growth, you can interact with a lot of people. That's what is called networking. There's a big difference between networking and relationships. So as far as success in your business, success in your work is concerned, the bigger your network, the better your prospects. But as far as success in relationships is concerned, it's better to be limited to a few meaningful, deep, and really valuable relationships. Does it make sense?
Makes sense.
Anything else? Yeah. Thank you very much. Very happy and grateful to be with all of you all. And some of the things that I spoke are written in 3 books that I have for all of you, of the many books that I've written. I highly recommend all of you to get your hands on these books. There's a book I've written called Open-Eyed Meditations. This is one of my best books that I've ever written. It's a book that has 64 chapters. Each one is about 2 pages long. And each chapter talks about some problems and challenges that we face in life, seen through lenses of Ramayana and Mahabharata. Just like I told you our 2 stories today. Similarly, this book has many, many stories, each of them trying to help you understand one aspect of life. This is called Open-Eyed Meditations. The second book is called Plug into Happiness. This book is a very, very powerful book. This actually has 28 chapters that talks about how you can be happy in a wholesome way. It gives some very insightful exercises, insightful stories, and insightful thoughts on living a happy and more meaningful life. And finally, the third book is called as 5.5 Ways to Lasting Relationships. This book is a handbook on developing meaningful relationships. This book has 6 stories from ancient India. Each story talks about people who have fallen in love but stayed in love for life. And what are the secrets that will help you maintain relationships for life? That's what this book is about. So I would highly recommend all of you all to get your hands on these 3 books and explore relationships and the yoga of love more deeply. Thank you very much.
If it's 6 chapters and 6 stories, why is it 5.5?
Now you have to read the book to figure out.
Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Shubha, for coming and giving us your time. I know when I was talking with Rajkripa, who's coordinating your schedule, I know that we have to squeeze you in. Now you're headed to Bhakti, I think, for another talk. So once again, thank you so much. In terms of the books, so what the schedule will look like now is we'll end with a little kirtan. I know you have to leave, but we'll still end with a little kirtan. In terms of the books, can we leave some here so that way, like, as the program continues, and people can get it as they leave, so we don't all have to like shift and like do that now? Is that okay? Okay, so we'll have the books here, even though they're heading out, and at your convenience, if you would like, you can get a copy later today. Once again, thank you so much, Shubha, for coming and sharing your wisdom. Really nice. So normally we have a projector, but there were no walls to project on. So I somehow managed to connect to this TV screen where, it's like way up high. So you may have to stretch your necks a little bit. I hope that's okay. And then at the same time, I have no idea what screen I'm presenting because I can't see. So if it's entirely different, you gotta let me know. And I'm trying out this new app because, again, I didn't know about this, so it may not work. Give me a second. Cool. So you guys should all be seeing a screen with like a peacock, correct? Yes? No? Oh, how about now? Which one is it now?
Hare Krishna, Hare
Oh, perfect. Yes, we have to work on our communication skills. So, Kirtan is really a beautiful form of meditation. It's one of my favorites, and it's one that I learned about earlier on in my life, but never really practiced until recently. I played piano for a really long time, and then somehow I found that the skills transferred quite easily to this keyboard-like instrument, which is called the harmonium, which is an air instrument, I guess. But it's so magical because through the power of sound and mantras, we're able to actually connect with our own self, the soul, super soul, the divine energy, whatever you may call it, within ourselves. So this one mantra, it has 4 or 5 words, and it has a beautiful meaning. So in the Gita, which is one of the ancient wisdom literatures of India, there's a poem or a verse, and it says, Raso aham apshukanteya pravasmisha shishu yayo pranava sarvaveteshu sabdeke purushamrishu. And it translates to, what this is describing is it's describing what are the qualities of the divine. And it translates to, I am the taste of water, I am the light of the sun and the moon, I am the syllable Om with the Vedic mantras, I am the sound in ether and ability in everyone. So this mantra, it's Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste. And it's essentially acknowledging the moon and how beautiful it is. Chandraya means moon. And today morning, I happened to wake up early enough to see the moon, and I just took a moment to look at it, and it was so large and beautiful today. It's still beautiful now, but in the morning it just seemed like it was right up in my face, and it's just so wondrous. It's so magical, and it's one of those things that we have in our lives that dictate so much about what we do, but we probably take it for granted as just another part of living on earth. So this is really a meditation on that. So we'll chant this mantra for a little bit, and I really encourage you to try to be in the moment, right? Mantra meditation is a cycle. The goal is, in order to be in the moment, you actually have to engage your mind in something. And the way you do that is you engage your mouth and your tongue in repeating the mantra, and you make it a full loop by hearing the mantra. It's really impossible to meditate on nothing. That's why people meditate on a flame or whatever it is. But it's so hard. something I was listening to recently. It said that we are human beings. We have to be. No, we're not human doings, but we're so used to doing everything, worrying about the world. On the way here, I was talking with Nupur about how the U.S. dollar is losing value and how the global currency exchanges are no longer using the U.S. dollar and how crypto is taking off. And it's like, if you worry about that, what is my money going to be worth in 20 years? It's like you could be forever in anxiety. Will my investments pay off? Should I take my money out of the market and keep hard cash? Should I buy gold? Maybe I should buy diamonds. Maybe I should invest in cars. But we get stuck in this never-ending cycle of just worrying about things. So my humble request is, please try to absorb yourself in the mantra. And we want to do so in the most comfortable way possible. I know it's a little chilly. There are blankets in the back if you would like a blanket and you can be a little cozy, because we want to be as comfortable as possible. Because if our foot's hurting, we're feeling cold, we're going to be meditating on how cold we feel, not actually the mantra. So yes, please don't be shy. Grab a blanket, grab a yoga mat, grab another sitting cushion, whatever you need to make yourself feel comfortable. Yes, and you can also stretch a little bit. There's no wrong answer here. Word for word, just so we can practice together before we engage with the mantra. The most important part is the intention. The mantra is written in Sanskrit. I don't know Sanskrit, but I just read the English lettering and did my best to understand it and pronounce it. Just like how we have European English, French English. Your accent doesn't really matter, but what matters is, are you repeating it to the best of your ability? So the first word is Chaitanya. Your turn. Chaitanya. Chandraya. Namo. Namaste. Put it together. Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya
Om